Hello, adventurers. Today I just wanted to make a quick video in regards to affixes with different elite mobs in Diablo 4. Just to go over just what you would see in the game with the different symbols and what those symbols mean for each of the bosses. So let's dive in. So to make it simpler, I've gone ahead and pulled up the Wowhead article and we'll go through the different affixes that there are. Before we get started, it's just a reminder that for tier 1 and 2, there's up to a maximum of 2 affixes on an elite mob. For tier 3, it's a max of 3 affixes on a mob, and then when you get to tier 4, you have a maximum of 4 on an elite mob. Each one of them can be categorized into two main categories. These two main categories are offensive and defensive. So the offensive ones are going to be more specific to offensive abilities that the mob either gets or enhancements to their existing attacks. For defensive, it's going to be more defensive to make the mobs tankier or to make them more giving more utility or control over the player. You're going to have cold, fire, lightning, as well as poison and shadow damage. These are all going to be applied to the resistances that you have. I'm working on another video in regards to resistances, but I have seen a couple videos floating around already. Resistances don't seem to matter so much in Diablo 4. Unlike other AARPGs, the resistances don't seem to affect the statuses that you receive from the type of damage it is. So, i.e., cold chills you. A chill will stack. After a certain amount of stacks, that chill will freeze you. I've tested it, and even with 75% resistances, which is typically the soft cap, when you're getting up to that amount of resistances, you're getting so much less for per point of resistance. But even stacking, say, cold resistance, I didn't see any decrease in the speed that I got chilled or the amount of time it took to freeze my character. So maybe it affects the damage, but definitely it is not noticeable in Diablo 4. And I recommend, even going over these, I recommend always stacking armor and prioritizing armor over resistances. This is just personally from my experience being at level 75 on my druid. So let's dive in. The first one we have here is Cold Enhanced. Cold Enhanced is exactly what it sounds like. It's going to enhance the attacks of the mob. The mob will have cold damage added and will chill you on contact. Again, those chill stacks will stack up. Once those chill stacks stack up, you will be frozen. In addition, there's a patch of frost that is placed on the ground periodically when fighting this mob. The next one we have here is Chilling Wind. Chilling Wind is a little bit more of an annoyance, but I do notice that Chilling Wind does not freeze me as much as Cold Enhance. Chilling Wind, it brings up 2 columns of air on each side that are cold. This air will protect the caster, so protect the enemy, as well as it will chill the player. But again, I don't really see this. Again, I'm playing Druid, so I am talking from a melee perspective. From a melee perspective, this is almost negligible. I don't even really consider this to be a threat at all. The cold enhanced, on another hand, like I said, you can get almost instantly chilled sometimes, depending on the attack speed of the mob. The next one that we have here is Frozen. Frozen summons 3 ice crystals. These ice crystals are placed around the area around the mob that you're fighting. These are mildly annoying and they do stack chill very fast. It is a slow moving projectile, so you can dodge it, but obviously with everything going on in Diablo 4, it's very difficult to see the ground. But these are little ice patches. It'll be a little white circle with like a crystal in it, and that crystal's shooting out a very slow moving, basically a snowball. If that snowball hits you, it will chill you for a short period of time. The next one that we have here that's still under the cold affixes is going to be Tempest. Tempest summons ice spikes around the elite and pulls the player towards the monster if you are in the path. Honestly, I haven't seen this one too much. This seems to be a rarer one. And when I do see it, I'm already in melee range, so this isn't really too much affecting me. Obviously, for casters in range, this could be a little bit more of a threat. Now, on to the next ones that we have here. We have the fire affixes. For the fire affixes, we have just like cold enhanced, we have fire enhanced. Fire Enhanced will allow the boss to have fireballs shoot out around them in each direction. So this is not directly to the attack. This is not going to burn you. This is specific to what they do. They are actually going to shoot these 3 fireballs in each direction. You can stand between those fireballs if you're melee. If you're ranged, you're just going to want to watch out and sidestep them. Once it's dead, it's also going to pulse for an additional 3 waves and shoot out fireballs and then explode. So this is going to be one of those mobs that you want to be careful if you're approaching, because once you walk towards that mob, it will explode and it could potentially kill you. It does do a lot of damage. The next one that we have here is Explosive. Explosive is as simple as it sounds. It will explode, but it spawns explosive orbs that deal fire damage to players in range. So for me as melee, I do see these spinning around and kind of spawning in different directions. For melee, it's not going to be a big deal. Range, just make sure you're moving. One of the other fire ones here is Mortar. This one is threatening to melee and range. This is going to put a red circle on the ground. This red circle will then have an arcing fireball come out of the elite mob, and it will land on the ground. This was in Diablo 3. It's returned in Diablo 4 in a little bit bigger of a fashion. The red circle is a lot bigger in D4, so you want to make sure that you're avoiding this. This does deal a lot of fire damage. They can overlap as well, so you can get in situations, if you're not paying attention, that you could have 2 or 3 mortars overlapping in the circles and you're standing in just the wrong spot and you get hit by all 3. So just make sure that you're being careful and make sure you're moving out of those. Moving on to the next element, we have lightning damage. For lightning damage, we have, just like with fire and cold, lightning enhanced. When struck, it releases an arc of lightning that damages the player. In addition, periodically releases small balls of lightning when struck. This damage is almost completely negligible. This is coming again from me on a 75 druid. I have roughly 40 to 50% res. Like I said, I was really focused early on trying to get those reses up to 75%, kind of having a Path of Exile mentality. It is not needed in Diablo 4. I'm running 40% and I feel perfectly fine. I don't have any issues at all in melee. I don't feel like any elemental attacks are causing me problems or like being poisoned is an issue. I don't know what the soft caps specifically are, but definitely resistances are not as impactful as they were before. The next one that we have here is an electrified obelisk. This is kind of a unique one. This will spawn little towers around you and around the mob. This will then chain lightning between those mobs. Walking between the chains of lightning will deal damage. Again, from my personal experience, negligible. I don't see any issue with this, and this will be a trend with the electric or the lightning damage. Apologies. With the lightning damage, I don't see it being a threat. It's not increasing. It's not like fire, where fire's doing a lot of burst damage that threatens you, and then cold, where it's freezing you and then you're dying from melee or a bunch of other mob and mechanics. With lightning, I do not feel like the damage is there, and almost every one of these is negligible. From here, there's going to be Shock Lance. Shock Lance spawns a ball of lightning that attaches lightning arms, then spins. So again, this is going to be like a ball of lightning, it'll explode, and then there'll be like a little Mario-esque dodge the lightning that spins around. Sort of like Arcane back in Diablo 3, where you had the Arcane that spun around in a circle. You can go ahead and, again, ignore this one. It is nothing like Arcane in Diablo 3. It does not hit that hard. Another lightning one that we have here is Teleporter. For Teleporter, it's as simple as the elite mob is just going to teleport. It creates a large lightning field around the mob before casting. So again, I don't see any damage coming from any of this, but it is quite annoying as melee that it teleports away. On to the poison affixes. The first one we have is Poison Enhanced. Again, going with the trend of buffing your attacks or giving you an extra ability based off of the elemental affix. Poison Enhanced is on hit. It has a chance to create a pool of poison underneath the player. That also spawns a pool underneath the elite when it dies. So these are going to be the ones where you're going to see a little brown pool underneath you. Probably the size, about the same size as the mortar from a fire attack. and you're just going to want to make sure you're stepping out of it. It doesn't deal a lot of damage. It's damage over time, so it's just going to be slow ticking damage. You'll also see that your health bar turns yellow. That yellow health bar is indicating how much poison damage you're going to take from that poison. So you'll see it ticking away over there. Even when you're standing in the pool, you'll see a little yellow tick when it's ticking away on your health. So you want to make sure you're stepping out of it. But again, just like with lightning, I don't find poison to be too threatening at all. The next one we have here is Plague Bearer. For Plague Bearer, it's after defeating Elite, a pool of poison is spawned that explodes into a poison bomb after a few seconds. This is just like the Fire Enhanced. You want to make sure you're just being careful. You don't want to walk into Fire Enhanced and get exploded on. Just like with Plague Bearer, you don't want to walk into Plague Bearer and get exploded on, getting loot or anything. So just be conscious of this. Moving on to the Shadow Affixes, we have Shadow Enhanced. Shadow Enhance summons a shadow copy of the elite, and this will attack players for a few seconds. This is a ability that I find to be one of the most threatening, up there with Mortar. Shadow Enhance will summon the copy. The copy is this red and black shadow. And if it is a hard-hitting elite, such as one of the goatmen with the two-handed axes that will absolutely cleave you to death, maybe one of the oppressors, or one of the larger butcher-like mobs that have really high melee damage, this can be very threatening because it can summon multiple copies of itself at the same time. I've seen 2, 3 copies of a mob summoned, and then all of them attacking me at the same time. This can do a lot of damage to you. So, especially as melee, just be conscious of that. That this is a very threatening one that could kill you potentially. So you wanna keep an eye out for this one. For Terrifying is another shadow affix. For this one, it places 2 demonic runes on the ground. I really feel like it is a lot more than 2. But this is a very annoying one for melee. It's going to be put a large circle on the ground. This circle is going to be about the size of what you see here in the screenshot or the thumbnail of the video. This is going to be a red and black circle with little runes carved into it. This will fear you if you are in it when it explodes. Any unstoppable can be used to break this. I run Earthen Bulwark on my druid, and fortunately I have it up most of the time in my build, so I'm able to break that fear if I do get caught in it. But that's just to keep an eye on that. That fear also does not seem to break when you're taking damage, which is very annoying. I would assume that the fear would break faster if you were taking damage, but unfortunately it does look like that when you're getting hit. I've had situations I'm feared for 5+ seconds. I'm getting feared just wandering off into La La Land, just getting pummeled by all the mobs. So unfortunately, it does look like you cannot. This doesn't break faster. So just keep an eye on this one. This one is definitely one of those that you want to dodge and make sure you're not getting hit by. Additionally, a little less threatening Shadow FX is Hellbound. This is another one that I do not see very often in any of the Nightmare Key or Nightmare sigils that I've been running. But this is Hellbound. It summons a totem. This totem then chains you if you are in range of it, and you cannot leave the range of that totem until you kill it. So it does mention here that it also pulls you towards it. Again, as melee, maybe I'm always just going towards it and killing it anyway. I don't notice that pull too much. I do notice the stopping of you being able to leave the region of that small circle, though. So again, this one's not very threatening, and I don't see it very often. But this is one that you just kill the totem, turn around, and start killing the elite mob again. Additionally, under Shadow Affixes, they have multi-shot. I don't think this one's specifically a Shadow Affix. This is definitely going to be a physical affix, in my opinion, but this is going to shoot additional projectiles from the target. So the target or the elite will shoot additional projectiles. Again, this one is melee. I don't really see it being an issue. Also for range, we're so tanky in Diablo 4 that having additional projectiles, maybe if we somehow set up to be hit by all 3 at the same time, being too close to the mob. I knew that was an issue back in D3. Nowadays, I don't really see that even as melee. I'm only getting hit by one of these. The other 2 are just flying off the screen, not bothering me at all. Additionally, another one we have here is Summoner. Summoner is going to summon 2 additional minions to fight for it. This one is not nearly as threatening as the Shadow Clone. This one here is pretty simple. This is just going to summon low-powered mobs. Those will just get cleaved down. You can almost always ignore these. I've never been threatened by summoner. I've always just focused the elite and then just cleave these mobs down. And on to my favorite of all, and I have a little bit of a hot take on this one. I do not think this is functioning correctly. Just throwing it out there. Don't want to throw shade to Blizzard or anything, but suppressor and everywhere I've read indicates that it one is a giant dome. I agree with that. There's a giant purple dome over the mob. That prevents range attacks and spells from reaching it. Now they say reaching it. I think that they do reach, it slows them, just like in Diablo 3. It's slowing those attacks. Those attacks will range spells and attacks will still hit the mob, but it is just slowed. So if you shoot like an arrow or something into this from like a rogue, or you cast a spell from the sorceress, you're gonna see that it slows that tremendously. Now preventing it from reaching the mob, I don't think that's true. I think if the mob stood still, it would definitely still hit the mob. However, from a melee perspective, I do not think this is functioning correctly because I feel like my damage is drastically cut from a suppressed mob. Anytime I see suppressor, I always just roll my eyes and laugh, especially in higher nightmare sigils, because I know that it's going to be a slog for me to kill that mob. So just an FYI, this one definitely does make the mob tankier. Maybe for pure melee builds, they're not feeling the same way. Maybe a barbarian could mention in the comments if they feel like it's reducing their damage at all. I particularly don't think it should be reducing my damage, but at the same time, I can tell you this makes them so much tankier. I would say it's almost double the amount of time to kill this mob compared to other ones. The next one we have is Vampiric. For Vampiric, attacks and abilities drain health from players. This is very easy. The elite mob's just gonna get a big chunk of health back. This is something that you just have to beat through. On higher nightmare keys where your damage is kind of being pushed, this is definitely one of those that's going to slow you down. CC does prevent this, so if you have any type of CC to be able to push them into a wall, stun them, freeze them, anything like that, you're definitely going to want to do that. Additionally, if you're at a range, they cannot vampiric you if they're a melee mob. You can kite them out. They're not going to just suck your health from range. They're gonna have to hit you. So that's another plus there for range. Melee, you're just gonna kind of have to CC or hit through it. And finally, we have Waller here. For Waller, the elite's just going to summon a U-shaped wall. This is just like in Diablo 3. You're going to have a wall come up. It's going to trap you in. You're going to have one way out. You're going to have to walk out of that. At this time, Druid doesn't have any way to get out of this. We're going to have to just dodge back out the way it lets us. I don't know if they're ever going to introduce a legendary maybe that allows us to walk through walls and mobs like we had before on the boots in Diablo 3, but we'll just have to see. But yeah, this is a really simple one to finish on. I hope that these were helpful. I hope this review was helpful. I know I had some trouble early on trying to figure out exactly what the images meant. So I hope going through these with you today will help you and maybe prevent some deaths. So good luck out there, and hope to see you in Diablo 4.